Kung Fu Kenny.
King Kenny! Hello everybody, welcome to Sunday Jamz. It's the whole crew in today, Joe, Shak and Sam, and on the agenda is new King Kenny, Kendrick Lamar, Damn.
Gosh.
New album. We need to apologise for being so late with this review. Both me and Sam had lots of essays, lots of deadlines, and they just happened to overlap with the release of Damn. So we've been listening to it for a few weeks, but we've only now managed to do the reviews. So yeah, apologies for that, but let's better late than never, eh? So yeah, let's do this. Let's do this. Kung Fu Kenny, baby. So yeah, starting off, here's the thing about Kendrick Lamar is most people, would say that Kendrick Lamar has kind of been on fire lately, and you have Untitled Unmasters, which is really just the B-sides. So I don't really count it as the canon of the Kendrick Lamar discography. In a sense, it is in a sense, in the same way that Amnesiac is still very much the canon of Radiohead discography, but in another sense, it's there's something a lot more running. There's more of a running concept between Kendrick albums than there is between, say, Radiohead albums. Like they all kind of link, as well as them all being individual kind of conceptions as well. And I don't think Untitled Masters kind of fits the progression because it is just kind of
yeah. It wasn't the next project.
Right, exactly. So what I'm saying here is the two, most people will say, there's plenty of contention. You're allowed to hate any album you like, right? And you can say you're wrong, both these albums are shit. But a lot of people will say that Good Kid, Mad City and To Pimp a Butterfly are two modern classics of hip-hop. I am definitely one of those people. I think they're both incredible albums. They both will be classics in 20 years' time or whatever.
I think we all think that.
Yeah, someone that's not very well versed in hip hop, I adore both of these albums, particularly Good Kid, Mad City.
Right. And so I think the thing is, people were like, okay, this guy has just dropped two fucking masterpieces, right? So how the fuck is he gonna one thing I want to say is there are very, 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 very few artists. I listen to quite a lot. I've listened to quite a lot of artists, in their discographies. There's an extremely small amount of artists who have released more than two incredible albums. Two is usually someone's max. There's two artists that have ever exceeded that for me. The Beatles and Radiohead. I don't think anyone else I can think of has ever released more than two amazing albums for me.
I can. For me.
Rush would be the exception in that rule for me.
Yeah, but Rush is definitely not the exception for me, and Nick Cave, which I assume is not my exception either. For me, it's just the Beatles and Radiohead. That's basically it. And Godspeed if you count their EP, but an EP doesn't really count. But anyway, yeah. So some people were going into Damn I need this to be another incredible album. For me, it was as long as this is very good, then to me he's still on form. This doesn't have to be albums like those two albums happen so rarely in music, full stop, for me, that this didn't have to be another fucking masterpiece to go down in history.
That's expecting too much from the man.
Exactly. Come on, two classics. He's allowed to release just a great album.
Yeah, you just create unreachable expectations by doing that.
Right, yeah. So all I wanted was I hope this is his third best album. That's what I wanted. And if I thought it was, I'll tell you at the end of the review. But that was all I was hoping for. Kicking off this album, I think everyone can agree with me that this album fucking blows your ass apart with the way it starts, which is Blood and DNA.
Absolutely.
Blood is
so sick.
Blood is some incredible atmosphere building. It's so tense, and it's oh my god, what the fuck is happening? What the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
And it's building and building and building, and then he gets fucking shot, and you're oh boy, because it makes you fully jump. You're oh shit, I didn't expect that. Didn't expect shots.
Yeah, it gave me vibes similar to when I first listened to Good Kid, Mad City, in that this track instantly got me ready for whatever kind of journey that Kendrick was going to take me on throughout the album. I was okay, I'm on board. Yeah. Let's do this.
And funny enough, on Good Kid, Mad City, the Sing About Me And he's like, if I die before my album drops, I hope. And then you hear gunshots. Those gunshots made me jump as well when I first heard it. I was like, what the fuck? And then these as well. So stop making me fucking jump, Kendrick. But other than that, yeah, it's a really amazing build-up. And then DNA.
Oh, man.
Then, one of the bad things about DNA is that it's so good, and it's the first song, and it's like, I need to not judge the rest of the album by the fact that it might not be as good as DNA was, because to me, like, DNA is like, even though actually it's not my favorite song on the album, but I think it's in everyone's like top 3 songs on the album.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, the beat switch is
the beat switch is like the best thing ever, man.
Yeah, it's so good, and the bass in the second half of the beat. The bass in the second beat is like ass destroying.
And Kendrick's flow in the second part of the track is just nuts.
Yeah, I in terms of the lyrics, you know, I like how because a lot of the discussion around problems in the black community, you know, you get a lot of people, you get a lot of nature nurture stuff, you know, especially when it comes to, you know, people who are full on like scientific racists and stuff like that. And, you know, I think the way he conflates biology and genetics and his DNA, but he's talking about these things that are more socially constructed, and he's talking about how they're in quote unquote his DNA, you know, and more like religious virtues and vices, but he's talking about how they're in his DNA. I just like the way he blends those two worlds together, those two concepts of how you define yourself. He blends them together in this song, which I thought was really cool. Has anyone else got something they really want to point out about DNA?
Well, you were saying
the video's sick.
Yeah, the video is really cool.
With Don Cheadle.
Yeah. You were saying about how he highlights all these things which are kind of more socially constructed in his DNA. I feel like this track really helps to bolster the kind of close, intimate, but also warped feel the rest of this album has in terms of Kendrick talking about these facets of his life that he encounters on a daily basis.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, DNA is an absolute huge kickoff to the album. And I think the album has a good ordering, a good flow. Even though, you know, it's his messiest album in a sense, because it's not like Good Kid, Mad City is like perfectly thematically like crafted in terms of its, you know, progression, you know, to the point where it's like it's basically like a film to listen to Good Kid, Mad City. To Pimp a Butterfly isn't quite as tight as Good Kid, Mad City, but it's still very clearly ordered in a specific way. Like, for example, the A and the B side feel very unique from each other, and you can still, this one feels a bit more up in the air, but you can tell why, because it feels like a more personal album. It feels like a more about his emotions and the conflicts of his emotions.
Yeah, but so then at the same time, I feel like it brings those contrasts as well, coming one after the other, like pride, humble, lust, love, fear, God. Like, they all come together like that. So there is a kind of structure, even though it does seem a lot more scattered. Yeah.
And one thing I was talking about when we did Humble review is I expect Kendrick to make me like Humble more in the context of the album. And I think he was successful because I liked that how Pride was very laid back, and it felt quite, even though he has that line, like, I can't fake humble because your ass is insecure, even though it has that line, which obviously is
sick.
It's a sick line, it's a prideful line, but even though it has that line, the feeling, like the tone of the song feels quite laid back. It feels like it's not trying to get in your face. So in a way, Pride sounds like a Humble song, and Humble sounds like a very upbeat, prideful song. So I felt like just by virtue of that contrast, Humble became a better song, or became a more enjoyable song. And yeah, like you said, this happens a lot, like Lust and Love. Some of them aren't as obvious, I think, like the contrast that is trying to be conjured up. Like, I don't think Lust and Love works as sharply and as obviously as Pride and Humble. The contrast between those two songs works.
Yeah.
But it's not like a problem, really. It's not like, oh man, that was poor placement of song, Kendrick. Like, why did you do that? Like, that wasn't the thought process that went through my head, really. Did anyone have any problem with the kind of procession of the album, like how it flowed, the ordering of the songs? Like, did anyone think, oh, that should have been shouldn't have been there, or that was a bit too close to the end.
I don't think I had a problem with any of it. It's just I thought there were some interesting choices that I feel actually helped create a kind of weird flow, like putting "Ya" right after DNA.
Yeah, I
it
think
goes
that's a really
from
good
like
contrast.
100 miles per hour to
yeah.
slow motion.
Yeah, and "Ya" is so like drony, and it's so like it kind of feels like he's inebriated. Like his delivery on that is so like you say, it's such a sharp contrast, but I think it works amazingly. Like because it just brings you down. You know, and "Ya"
the highs and the lows.
Right, yeah, and "Ya," you know, it's not being received as one of the best songs, but for me, it's a really big highlight. Like, I love "Ya," like because of how well it conjures this, and like I said, inebriated and fed up, tired atmosphere.
Yeah,
you know? and
while I appreciate that, it's still probably one of my least favorite ones to like. I enjoy it the least.
Right.
I get it. Like I don't know. Just the general vibes. Like it's so dreary that it kind of. I don't have as much fun with it.
See, I feel like it perfectly captures the album art. That particular track.
Absolutely. That song is the album art.
Yeah, and if you are it is a very sharp contrast between DNA and "Ya," and I could totally understand if someone's like, yeah, like I was having loads of fun with DNA, and then I don't know, it just felt like I was in a car crash afterwards or something.
Yeah.
And like, I get that, but "Ya" is an extremely interesting track in its own right and in the progression of the album.
I think another really interesting thing about "Ya" is that really glitchy cutting beat. You know, it's kind of like warped and it's going backwards a bit.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a really strange beat, especially because DNA is quite a straightforward banger beat. You know, Michael made it, and you know, he's like, you know, he's a contemporary, you know, producer who makes like modern bangers and, you know, like makes songs for like 21 Savage and shit like that, you know. So it's like it's a very like straightforward beat, DNA. Whereas "Ya" is like a lot more arty in a sense. The beat, it's a lot more like, oh, that's weird, like that's clearly quite weird. Whereas you don't really say that with DNA. So again, like you say, in where it's been placed, in another way, there's another contrast there. You know, there's another strong, differentiation between those two tracks.
Yeah.
You wanted to highlight, like you were talking about "Ya's" beat being this kind of glitchy, weird beat. I think in terms of like glitchy, weird beat, like that track and stuff like "Feel." Made me kind of think that this was, if I were to draw parallels with other hip hop artists, this to me feels like Kendrick's answer to Yeezus in a way. In that prior to this, his beats have been kind of more straightforward or not as electronic.
Right.
Whereas on this album, you do get this very strange electronic, like on the track "Feel." When I first heard the beat to that, and you get this kind of like watery vocal sample.
Yeah.
It sounded to me almost like I was listening to something off Echo Jams.
Yeah,
it was so weird but brilliant.
It's very distorted. It's very and it repeats as well in that kind of drony way. Which is very, you know, like you say, it's very Echo Jams in that sense. And it's one of his most like, it's one of his tightest like rhyme schemes. You know, that I feel like I'm blah 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 blah. I feel like you know, and it's very it's a very nicely controlled rap. I think it's one of his strongest like technical raps in this album is what he did on "Feel." But yeah, I totally agree with what you said, because like you said, Good Kid, Mad City was more, it's very straightforward beats, and then To Pimp a Butterfly was like all out jazz and soul and funk beats, you know. And here it's like, you know, a bit weird, bit arty, bit electronic.
Like in quite a few moments, there's things are actually reversed.
Yeah, Loyalty. There's a sample in Loyalty that's constantly reversing in the background, like reversing. It sounds like reversing VHS tape stuff.
Yeah, like loads of the drum samples in Lust sound reversed as well.
Yeah.
And there's the reversed vocals, the actual reversed lyrics later in the album as well.
And there's Duckworth being the beginning of the story, and Blood kind of being the end of the story, because Duckworth is about his childhood and Blood is about him dying. So you know, there's definitely a theme of reversal in this album.
Yeah.
Can I also say as well, seeing as we're on Loyalty, Rihanna spits some fire on this song.
Yeah, Rihanna's good.
I'm guessing she didn't write it, but she fucking killed it anyway. Like, it was fire. Like, I was like, Rihanna should rap more, and you know, because the way they trade off is like two sick rappers. You know, it's like the way they trade off is sick, man. I was hyped about Rihanna. Like, everyone was questioning Rihanna and U2, and they both ended up being really, really well executed features, I thought.
See, I liked Rihanna in Loyalty. I feel like she definitely surprised me. I wasn't expecting something like that. But the hook in Loyalty, man, it really annoys me.
Really?
Just the delivery and just this repeat of loyalty.
Loyalty, mate, it's a banger.
Just thought it was a little bit grating. It doesn't stop the song from being good, but in terms of that's probably one of my least favourite parts of the album.
It feels like there's definitely a trendy nonce in this album. And the chorus of Loyalty is definitely one of the trendy bits. Yeah. But to me, it's one of the better trendy bits because, you know, because some of the trendy bits on this album are very questionable.
You're going to talk about love now.
So, okay, sure. I think that's a good intersection. So, there are two songs on this album that basically stop this album from being amazing to me, and one of them is Love. And I've got loads of problems with Love. The first one is, who the fuck is this Weeknd rip-off guy singing? Because he literally just sounds like a kind of less good version of The Weeknd.
Right.
Give me a run for my money. That guy who comes in at the beginning of the song.
Sipping bubbly, feeling lovely.
And then the chorus. This is the chorus that annoys me.
I want to be with you.
Like, this chorus grates the fuck out of me. Like, and it's so popular. It's so poppy and stuff. But in another way, there's something charming about it because it feels kind of innocent. It feels like Kendrick's
love drunk.
Yeah,
Kendrick feels like there's an innocence here that I kind of like. So this song is somewhat redeemable. This song is somewhat redeemable.
Kendrick somehow gets away with it.
God is not redeemable. God is
God is bad.
He's ever made, I think. Like, well, I don't know about pre, Section 80. And there's a couple songs on Section 80 that could rival this song, because there's a couple of cringy songs on Section 80. But definitely from Good Kid, Mad City onwards, this is the worst song he's released. So God is an extremely annoying chorus, and I get it. It's supposed to be like a festival song, like it's something that the crowd sings back at you, and it's a very live, clearly made for the live atmosphere, right? But yeah, there's just not anything I like about this song. Like, it's extremely meh. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not like, I can listen to his album front to back. I wouldn't skip God. It doesn't offend me that much. But it's pretty like, I don't like it, and it definitely holds the album back, because if I'm to call an album amazing, there can't be a song as weak as something like God on it. Like, all song has to be at least like solidly good for me to say this album's amazing. Like, the worst song has to be at least very good. And Love, I don't think is very good, and God, I think, is even worse. So and it's because I think it's partially because he's done this thing where he's tried to get really trendy. And to me, it worked on Loyalty, and it didn't work on Love and God.
Yeah. God doesn't offend me that much. I don't.
Yeah,
think.
It's just a bit inoffensive. It's just
like super, super trappy, and like,
yeah,
I feel just kind of redundant, and it's oversimplified almost.
Yeah, it's too simple. Yeah. Yeah, and it's the thing with Loyalty, is that it has that, like we were talking about, that reversing tape thing, which gives it this edge. It gives it this kind of artistic edge. So it's not just a a Rihanna pop song. Like, this isn't the kind of song that's going to top a chart, I don't think. So
no.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an artistic edge Loyalty has over Love and God.
But the fact that, we are talking about the more kind of trendy takes on this album being not so great. I personally definitely appreciate how he's transitioned from this kind of concept-heavy, more straightforward style from To Pimp a Butterfly to this extreme, like, experimentation everywhere. Like, it's reflective in not only the beats, but also in the features. So we've already talked about Rihanna, but come on, man, let's talk about that U2 feature.
Yeah, the U2 features are really, really good.
Yeah. Triple X.
Weird song.
Triple X is probably the best song on the album for me, apart from DNA. It's
Triple X is your number one song.
Yeah, for me, just because, well, I was extremely surprised by how well the U2 feature worked. Like,
yeah, there's so much switching up in this song as well. Like, there's so much cuts into different beats,
song,
and there's loads of different ideas, and it's crazy, but in the best way. Like,
absolutely,
all the ideas feel fresh. I have three. I have highlights, and I have these three super highlights.
Okay.
And Triple X is one of the three super highlights on the album. Like, it is definitely one of my amazing favorite songs. Like, it's definitely up there. DNA is another one of my super highlights, and my other third super highlight, which is my number one song on the album, is Lost.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that song. That's probably my favorite song on the album.
The storytelling in this album, in this song, is like, it blows me away. Listening to the wake up in the morning, think about all that, that whole story.
Yeah. Something came over me.
Yeah, and that chorus, it's so like outcasty. It's so like it feels very like soul-y in that kind of outcasty way that I really like. And Kendrick has always had Andre 3000 vibes. I think the way he raps, feels very much influenced by Andre 3000.
That kind of neo soul vibe.
Right? Yeah, it feels like a collaboration that needs to happen, like at some point in the future. Like, it's crazy that it hasn't happened, and they're both so insane. Like, it'd be amazing.
Yeah. I love how the drums reversed. Like, it sounds like a heartbeat. It sounds like just like this pulsating that just like adds to the it's almost like a creepy vibe. It sounds almost like unsettling and like overly intimate in parts.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, and I think there's a lot of moments on this album that have that kind of unsettling, really intimate. And I think it's because there's this overarching kind of God concept where it's like that's a good encapsulation of like a relationship with God. Sometimes it can feel a bit unsettling, but it also feels extremely intimate. And I think those kind of feelings are all over this album for a reason. But yeah, in Lust, the way the story, the wake up in the morning, think about money, kick your feet up thing, and like the way he does it, and he like starts it again. He's like, hold up, let me start it again. And he tells the story, and then there's the second story, and he tells that, like, and the drum beat comes in, and then there's so you have the story from, I think it's the male perspective story, and then the female perspective story, which has the drums come in with the female perspective. And then you have the third story, which is about like basically the night after, kind of a hangover, and you wake up and, oh my God, Trump's president. And that's like, I guess that's supposed to be just like either the male or the female perspective. But in that third story, there's this like cool synth sound that comes in.
Banner.
Yeah, like epic. Yeah. And another thing I want to say about this and the whole Trump reference, and it's something that I wanted to pick up about in relation to Joey Badass's latest album. I think the way Kendrick Lamar does politics is a lot more like there's a subtlety I like about it,
a bit more nuance.
Yeah. Like the way Joey does it, it's very like straightforward in a way, and
on the nose,
cliche, just
the kind of basic narrative that you
overdone.
Right, yeah, but the way Kendrick does it, it's very creative and it's very introspective as well as kind of whatever the opposite of introspective is. It's very introspective as well as like looking outwards, and you know, and the way he puts you under the spotlight when he's talking about Trump, like, okay, time passes and then we all revert back to our old regular lives. It's like, okay, so why are you not doing anything about this? Like, why is it? What's the action you need to be taking? Like, he puts the spotlight back on you. Like, he's always reminding you that you have a responsibility. It's not just the world is shitting on you. Like, you have choices to make. You have responsibilities. You have things to do. If you feel like your wrongs are being done, you know, and I feel like the way he puts that forward is just a lot more interesting than a lot of political commentators within hip hop do. So yeah, those are my 3 super highlights. I'll move on to just my regular highlights now, as well as those 3. Oh wait, but what did you think about Lust, Sam? Before I move on,
there's not a lot more that I could offer in terms of discussion. I thought it was a solid track. I'm not entirely sure that I'd count it as like one of the best on the album. It just didn't do enough for me in the same way that my other highlights did.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough.
For me, the storytelling in the verses gave me throwbacks to things off of like the last 2 albums.
Right. Yeah.
When he's actually like, it's actually like a first person, like,
yeah,
going through what he's doing and like what he's thinking and everything.
Like songs like "How Much a Dollar Cost," obviously, is story.
One of my favorites off
definitely
Butterfly.
And obviously, Good Kid, Mad City is basically the whole thing's like storytelling. So, definitely.
Art of Peer Pressure. That's one of my favorites off that.
Yeah. So yeah, I know what you mean. It's definitely back to that kind of storytelling thing. But yeah. So yeah, my other highlights. It's weird. Blood is definitely a highlight for me, even though it's just like a 1 minute. Well, it's like a 2 minute. I love the suspense and the build up, and it sounds so good, and I love his spoken word on it. And you know, it's like, I think it's an amazing song. Like, even though it's kind of not really a song,
it's much more than just an interlude, though.
Yeah, it feels more than just like an intro he just threw on the beginning, right? Yeah. So yeah, Blood is for sure a highlight for me. DNA, Yar is a highlight, and Yar is the highlight I want to like make the most, you know, noise about, in a sense, because it's being very much not
dismissed,
talked about as a highlight. Yeah, and to me, like I've already given my reasons earlier, but to me, this song it's definitely one I personally return to, one of the most on the album. Like, I always find myself coming back to Yar. But also, I think I really love the soundscapes that he creates. Well, not he, because he's not the producer, but the soundscapes he decided to rap on, you know. Loyalty is a highlight. Again, that might be a bit controversial. I think Loyalty is one of the lesser favoured songs in the general kind of reception. But I love Rihanna on this, back and forth. I love like I said, the looping weird tapes. Feels like something you might hear off in, like, I don't know, like Boards of Canada maybe, or something. I don't know. I really love that. Pride is for sure a highlight.
Pride is so good, man.
Yeah.
One of my highlights. Say again?
What was it that you really liked about Pride?
I just love like that, just that really slow beat.
Yeah.
Just his flow, like
really
the chorus is sick.
This song sounds like a stroll down the road. I feel like I'm strolling slowly down the road.
Just like daydreaming or something.
Yeah.
And the intro as well. The death of you.
Yeah, I love that intro. Yeah,
it's just sick, man.
So yeah, Pride. I've already said my 3 super highlights. And then my last highlight is Duckworth, the last song. I think the thing that makes this song so cool is the concept and the lyrics. That whole thing about how this guy spared his father. This guy ended up being his manager. And, you know, he didn't kill his father, which meant Kendrick had a dad, which meant he got to grow up with a father figure, which meant he didn't just end up on the streets. You know, and he really puts choices under the microscope. It's like, look at the choices that were made and look at the cataclysmic butterfly effects that these choices have. Like, if my dad had decided not to give Anthony extra chicken, then he might have killed him when he robbed the KFC, you know, and thus I wouldn't have had a dad. Anthony would have gone to prison and never would have been my manager. And because of that, because of those little things, now everyone is so much better off. Everyone did so much better in life. And I think it's that concept, that exciting concept that makes this a highlight for me. The beat is good, the rapping's good, but really conceptually, this is what pulls me into the song. And obviously the fact it's called Duckworth automatically, immediately makes it a very personal song, you know, being his last name. So it's like, those are my highlights. I think a lot of people would be surprised I didn't put Fear or Feel in there, because those are two super popular songs in terms of the reception they're getting. They're both good songs. I don't know why they're not highlights. I think it's just the amount. Like, Feel doesn't have a catchiness at all, even though it's a really good song. I think it's the lack of a catchiness that makes me kind of, it's not a low light, but it makes me kind of not want to return to it, because it's like,
I agree.
It's just like a barrage of rapping and feels kind of.
In fact, I feel like they're two of the weaker songs on the album.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and
less memorable.
Fear, I like the haunting beat, and I love that waga do I gotta. I love that bit.
Just their reversed vocals though. It's like, I feel like what is he trying to do with this? Like, do I actually have to reverse the song to listen to this song, or like?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of talk about how there might be a bit too much ideas trying to be packed into this album, a bit too many like concepts that end up being slightly half baked because there's too many of them in a sense. You know, you've got like the reversing thing, and you got to play the album backwards. Oh no, you've got to play the album in a church. I know, and it's like, you know, it's like there's too much conceptually going on, and it's like, really, to me, the concept that matters is his relationship to God. Like, I feel like this is his most God heavy album. And in his most, like, him analyzing himself and his sins and the things, you know, his, you know, the pride and the lust and all that shit, and analyzing straying away from God's light and that whole concept. To me, that's and making the right choices and not making those choices that cause you to stray from God. To me, that's the overarching concept, and the whole reversing shit, and, you know, there's a lot of stuff that it's like, it's cool. I love the sounds of it in a kind of superficial way, because I'm a big fan of just like weird, warped, you know, shit. But in terms of conceptually, I don't think it's as important, or doesn't hook me as much.
Yeah.
Lowlights, as I said before, Love and God, trying to be too trendy. Choruses are both a bit grating. God has even less to offer than Love, in my opinion, because Love has that niceness, that kind of sweetness of the I Want to Be With You, and the guy who's a Weeknd ripoff. Thankfully for him, I really like The Weeknd, so when he did his Weeknd impression, it actually sounded good. So, you know, it's decent, you know. So it's a decent song, but it's still a low light, but only because the quality of the album is high. So on another album, it might be a mid-light. It would never be a highlight, but it could be a mid-light on another album. But here, for this album, it's a low light.
Cool. My highlights, as we've already talked about, DNA, incredible song. What an opener. Oh my God. And that beat change, oh my God. Blasting that in my car for days.
Bumps in the whip.
It's amazing. Pride, as we've already gone over. Lust, as we've already gone over. Lust is just amazing. That was like, on my first listen, that was the one that really brought me back in.
It's still my one.
One we haven't talked about, Element.
Oh, sexy. Yeah. Element is sick. It's not quite a highlight, but again, that's more a testament to how good the album is, rather than the fact it's still a great song. It's just, to be a highlight, it had to be like an incredible song, because the album's quality was on average quite high. But Element, yeah, it's such a good song. It's a really good song.
It is 100% one of my highlights. Like,
fair.
If you release this as a single, like, it would have been like hype, like huge hype.
He still might.
Yeah. Like,
I love it when
Humble was an interesting choice. as a single.
Yeah.
Hey, what are you saying? You love it when?
I love it in Element when he does If I Got a Sapper Pussy Ass Nigga, but he like slows it the fuck down at the end, and it sounds so cool. Yeah, like it's so when he makes it drone and on. Yeah, I love that switch up. And it's a great song.
And maybe Triple X as well.
Yeah, just
because it's so chaotic, like almost dystopian vision of America, where there's like all those sirens and like there's like revving, and then it like slows down and it sounds all like jazzy and like you're in like a smoky bar, and there's Bono singing. For some reason, somehow he ended up on this album, and it sounds great. Lowlights, Love, as we've mentioned, it's just kind of weak compared to a lot of the album. I don't want to say humble, but it has lost so much of what it first initially had. Like when I first heard it, it was like, wow, this is big. But now it's like
compared to DNA. When you hear DNA, it's like, oh wait, this is what humble should have been.
Yeah, like humble's just kind of like it's done its job, and now it's like I don't really pay it much attention anymore. Although it's a great song.
Yeah, it's not a low light. So how do you feel about Love and God?
God, like while it's like we already said, like I feel like it's oversimplified.
Yeah, it's oversimplified. So
like it's got that catchy hook, like that laughing to the bank. Like I don't hate it. It probably wouldn't be a low light for me.
Okay.
And I don't want to say either, because I appreciate it for what it's doing on the album.
Yeah.
And it's not too long. It's only 2 minutes 40. So that slow motion between DNA and Element, I feel like it is welcome. But as a song, like I don't think I'd ever just stick on because the pace isn't to Kendrick's strength. I feel like I enjoy it like so much more when it's not even necessarily the speed, because like it's not like Pride is a fast song.
Is it this kind of
it's like almost like the technicality. Like I like it when he's being a little bit more technical.
Yeah.
And like he's actually mixing it up a little bit more. Like it almost reminds me of like a Drake song or something. In that like he's almost just like singing, he's not rapping.
Yeah. Yeah, it is that sing rap kind of.
Radar just buzzing.
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
I just love it. Like I can understand what you mean, but it's probably the song I come back to the most on the album, because the vibe is just so like
that's interesting.
Lie back and listen to it kind of vibe. Like it really chills me out listening to Yah.
No, yeah, it creates that atmosphere and that vibe really well. Yeah. But that's just Kendrick's just a master, I feel, at creating the atmospheres he wants.
Vibe creation, yeah.
Yeah, man. Bitch, don't kill my vibe.
So your lowlights were?
My lowlights were probably Love, God, and then like maybe maybe Humble, but not really. And also Fear.
Right, okay.
I think Fear's a low light, because like I don't care much for the reversed bit.
Right.
Like that doesn't, I don't really enjoy it. And like while the answer machine, the recording at the beginning, while that is like intriguing and like I like it's an interesting theme going through the album and how he comes back to it on other songs as well. Yeah, like it's hard for me to pick my lowlights because of just I really love the album.
Okay, yeah.
It's really hard for me to pick songs that I don't like because like only a couple songs have obvious weaknesses.
Yeah. Okay.
So my highlights of this album, I'm going to highlight songs which, in my opinion, rose above the already pretty stellar quality of the majority of this album. So DNA, purely for how incredibly explosive of an opening it is, especially after the tension that was built up from Blood. And like Shakeel, I do like that car crash feel of Yah, and it's not something I think we've seen from Kendrick before, and I appreciate the experimentation there. But Element is definitely a highlight for me because it's the hook that I walked away saying the most after listening to the album. Like it's the most bangery track which I have been able to just kind of just like be not thinking anything for a moment, then all of a sudden I'll just think, if I'll go hard on a bitch, I'm gonna make it look sexy. Like the I'm gonna make it look sexy delivery is just on point.
Sexy.
It's very catchy.
Yeah.
Triple X is definitely one of my highlights, just because I feel like it's one of the better examples on this album where Kendrick can mix up his flow and the pace of a track so much, and it all just clicks. And plus, that U2 feature was just unbelievably surprising in its quality. And I guess my final highlight would probably be Feel, because I really do like that beat, and it's sampled from somewhere. It's like biological hip hop or something. It's some really obscure thing. Okay. But yeah, Lowlights, Loyalty, just because it feels a bit. Same with Love. They just both feel a bit too trendy and a little bit out of place in this album, which seems to be going for the more experimental side of things.
Yeah, I really think Loyalty has an experimental edge to it, though, especially with like I said, the looping reverse.
Yeah, apart from the tape rewinds, though, I don't feel it. Like I feel like that song and Love could have quite happily fallen off Section 80.
So to the scores. So I said at the beginning of this review that artists very rarely release more than 2 amazing albums. For me personally, in my personal opinion, and to me, a 9 is amazing. And it is really Love and God that hold this album back from being a 9. So to me, this is an 8.5. It's like a high 8. And it did succeed in being Kendrick's third best album, in my opinion. I prefer it to Untitled Unmastered. I prefer it to Section 80. So yeah, it's up there. It's up there, man. But it's not quite an incredible album for me. So a high 8.5. So yeah, well done, like Kendrick. You're hella consistent. I didn't expect anything less, and I wasn't expecting too much. Like I wasn't expecting my favorite album of all time. So I think you perfectly fulfilled my expectations, and perhaps even gave me a little more. Because every time I listened to the album, I liked it more and more. And I think this is a really great album, and I do love it. I do love this album. So yeah, high 8.5.
I'm pretty sure I'm gonna meet that. Like I'm pretty sure I agree. Like as soon as you said the word ratings, I was like 8. It's a good 8.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a 9, but Love and like the weak spots aren't bad enough to drag it down that much. So I'd probably give it, I'd say 8.5, decent 8.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, I'm gonna echo that. It's better than Untitled Unmastered. Just because Untitled Unmastered, without the context of it being a runoff of To Pimp a Butterfly, I don't think would nearly be as strong. And Section 80 is definitely that kind of like solid debut album, but is very much a debut album.
Yeah, like you can tell he hasn't come into his own yet.
Yeah.
High Power is basically the only song on that album that's like on the same level as his later stuff.
Yeah. And yeah, there's nothing bad on this album, but I don't think that the album, through individual songs or the general flow or feel of this album, meets the quality of Good Kid, Mad City or To Pimp a Butterfly. Just, it falls slightly short. Like, I still think it's a solid 8, but it is, in my mind, very clearly not a 9.
But solid 8s across the board, yeah. High 8 for me, yeah. Solid, which is a solid 8.
Kendrick, man, he's just fucking mad.
He's on fire, man. He's unstoppable.
Kung Fu Kenny.
King Kenny! Thank you for this album. Thank you for a year of more of your music. Because I am definitely going to listen to the shit out of this, as I did to the other albums.
Bless up.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you guys listened to Damn, what did you think of it? Is this one of Kenny's best? Do you think he fell off?
Were you thinking, damn? Damn! Let us know.
Precisely what Sam said. Let us know. What damn did you say when you finished this album? That's what we want to know. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Catch us for the next big review. I'm not sure what it is, but there'll be one. So
it's gonna be big.
It's gonna be big.